There's nothing like sweating in the 95-degree heat for 4 hours to really take it out of you. I'm gonna go eat a burrito, drink some fizzy water, maybe smoke a stogie later. I don't know. Either way, it's all done. So we get the little American flags. I said, you know, you got to get a steak. For some of the stuff that's small, she didn't have steaks, so she went and got American flags since 4th of July. Louis hates 4th of July, by the way. Shit blowing up everywhere. Sounds like Fallujah circa 2005. You know, she's not really into it. She starts cowering, hiding under the table and shit. You know, if I'm discharging firearms, I do it far away from her, because not that I do that on 4th of July. I'm just saying, you know, if I'm, you know, shooting or something, she don't like the bang. Anyway, so we put the irrigation tubes in the ground. It comes like that. I just did it really sloppy. I'm not trying to, you know, be out here longer than I need to be, and we're gonna rip it out in 6 months anyway, so it just zigzags, right? It's kind of funny because when when you're putting it in, when I'm laying the tubing down, I do what the sidewinder snakes do. They kind of vibrate back and forth in the sand, you know, to bury themselves. That's all you do. So you just zigzag it, and again, it doesn't need to be right up against the plants. I'm gonna probably do an hour a night for the first week so that I thoroughly saturate the soil. Remember, the bedrock's only 8 inches down, can dry out pretty quick, and then, you know, I'll see how that does. If they look like anybody's rotting or having trouble, then I'll turn it down to 20 minutes, whatever. But either way, it zigzags like this. Then I got some blank tubing right here, reconnected to the drip tubing. You can see there's a little bit, and then it just zigzags through. You know, the front we didn't get. She'll have to water that. I'll tell her that. But honestly, they got good rain here. So, and then see, this is what I got it going right now. This is where it ends. So it goes like this, ends right here. Just pinch it off like that. We got it on, and that's what, you know, it doesn't seem like that much water, but when you leave it on for 40 minutes a night at 9 p.m., it really saturates the ground, and it does so in a healthy way. It doesn't soak, it's not sitting in water. Just make sure everything gets moist. So this Muhlenbergia, it's gonna look great. You know, just give it 4 months to fill in. Next year it'll be fucking established. It'll look terrific. I gotta go clean up all this shit. Anyway, that's all I got. Have a great day. Go fuck yourself. Bye. Everybody should do this. Look, I'm coming for that lawn next. All these lawns, I'm coming for all of them. So as you can see, we got this mulch pile taken care of. We got Fermin helping us now. Moved all this stuff. It's not even noon yet. This is the smart time to do this. It's still hot as balls, don't get me wrong. Homeowner says she wants a pet there. I think that's a good idea, so we're gonna keep it kind of low. Again, only thing I'm thinking about is height of the plant when mature and the way the sun moves. That's east, behind me is west, and behind me now is south. You can see we got desert willow, Salvia darcyi. I'm gonna lay some irrigation tubing down after all is said and done, after taking a short break. And but once you get the mulch down, it's really easy. You know, when you plant, you basically, then after the mulch is down, then I just go spacing stuff. And then when you plant, you just gotta, you know, with the little sharpshooter, scooch the mulch out of the way, and then start digging. I can dig a hole, takes me 15 seconds. Got kinoclinium, got some melanthium right there, asteraceae, got some Myrospermum too, that Arroyo Sweetwood, Fabaceae, beautiful legume with white flowers. Got Nolina. Nobody's ever planted Nolina. Nolina lindheimeri and Nolina texana. Two species, they look a lot alike. When they flower, you can tell the difference, you know. I think it's lindheimeri's got the big tall scape, and texana, the flowers are more, the tiny flowers in the panicle are more ensconced in this massive broom of what looks like bear grass. So anyway, we should be done here soon, but it's nice. Just got the hose running. You know, the dogs are hanging out. Put Jack in the car so we don't have to issue a silver alert for his ass when he's 5 blocks away, you know. But in most of this stuff, there are deer here. It's a horrible deer problem. So, you know, we're planting lots of members of asteraceae. They got the sesquiterpene lactones that taste terrible when deer munching them, as well as members of the mint family. A lot of the salvias and the mints the deer don't like. So see, we're not anti-grass, we're just anti-lawn. This is Muhlenbergia reverchonii, one of the coolest grasses on the Edwards Plateau, and the old leaf blades die. It's a perennial bunch grass. When the old leaf blades die, they turn gray and kind of curl up. It looks like this kind of bunch of curly whirlies at the base, while the green is still going. It's a really wonderful little bunch grass. I'm going to place them all around this little tree, you know, messing with the spacing, fucking with the spacing, so it's not uniform, making it zigzag, just kind of chicken pocking it. That's what I like doing. That's what nature does. It chicken pocks. It doesn't plant like orchards. It doesn't look like Minecraft video game landscaping. Okay, it's just sporadic and random. It's nice. I like that. I don't like mimicking the miserable control and the OCD nature of the human world. So as you see, we're just about done. Holy hell, my heart rate's been at like 130 for the last 3 hours. I got these little bowls. This is Salvia penstemonoides. This is a super rare, really cool shade loving plant in the mint family. Doesn't smell too minty, but it gets, you know, massive inflorescences, 4 feet tall, beautiful flowers. Salvia penstemonoides. I got little bowls, like little nests that I dug in the mulch for it. That makes it easier to water. Now, if, you know, we were due to get rain. If this was a higher rainfall environment, I wouldn't be making these little bowls, these little nests. But due to the fact that it's Texas and it's often hot and dry, and the bedrock is only 8 inches down, which means there's not much soil here, I make these little bowls so that the water doesn't just run off. And so when I water, I literally just hold the hose over it, 10 seconds, give it a soak, and I only water if the soil's dry. Not just if it looks dry, but if I stick my finger in it and it's dry. And so I'm going to do that for now, just to water this stuff in, and then I'm going to set up the irrigation tubing. So there we go, we're all set up. You know, if it was up to me, I'd get some boulders or something. And yeah, I like doing a hardscaping and stuff, but you know, whatever. We could do that later and worry about it. We're just going to get these plants and get them established while we're in the growing season, which in Texas is quite long. So the last step is we get this stuff. You get this 1/2-inch irrigation tubing. It's about $30 for a roll online. I suggest you get it online, or you can go to Ewing Irrigation Supply, Outdoor Supply, whatever. This is a roll of blank. That's a roll that's got the holes in it. So you can see the little tiny holes, little emitters every 12 inches. And it's not just a tube with holes. There's actually like a little valve that controls how much it goes out. So it's not just like a tube with holes poked in it. But either way, we just come over here to the hose. Ugh, almost touched the crepe myrtle. Gross. And then we just screw it on there. Normally you get a time or two. And it's really easy. Literally, this takes 30 seconds to set up. It's a pain in the ass because you have to unroll the coil a certain way. Otherwise, it bends. You know, same thing a hose does. It's a pain in the ass. But it's easier if you got 2 people. Or you can use stakes. You stake it into the ground, but this ground is kind of wet now, so the stakes may not even hold it. Either way, and then you do that, you lay it down, and then you just cover it with mulch. You know, I don't care about how it looks. I'm not trying to make it sightly. I just don't want the sun to bake the shit out of this plastic and then decrease the lifespan of the hose. You can leave this in, since the native plant garden, we'll leave this in for maybe 6 to 8 months once stuff's established, and then you can take it out. And then you can go use it at another house if you kill another lawn, whatever. All right? They got other kinds of junctions and stuff. You can make it more, you know, convoluted than you need to if it's going to be a long-term thing. But me, I just zigzag it, wrap it around, try to hit everything, and then turn it on at night, 9, 10 p.m., 30 minutes, 1 hour. It depends on the rainfall, depends how dry the soil is. You know, you got to monitor it, keep an eye on it. There's no set formula. You just got to feel it out. But it works, and you're just getting this stuff established. Once it's established, you could take this stuff out. Or if it's, you know, a drought spell, which we get in Texas, you can leave it in. And especially if you're feeding hummingbirds, a bunch of pollinators and shit, it'd be kind of a dick move to take the irrigation out. The plants will survive, but they're not going to be flowering. And, you know, you're taking food away from all the pollinators, all the cool shit you like seeing. So look how much better that looks. I think it looks fucking great, right? And for the OCD among us, that uniform brown, the mulch, which again was free, gets them to shut up and calm down, you know, and it makes it look more intentional. I don't mind the war zone look. You know, if it was just dead grass and shit tore up everywhere, it looks like the trenches at Kent, I'm at home. I love that. But some people, you know, depending on what neighborhood you're in and the amount of, you know, members of the square community that are present, you know, you might not want to do that. So get some off your back. So now we just got to set up the irrigation tubing, turn it on. I'll probably set it 20, 30 minutes a night because those little drippers don't emit too much. And then see how that goes. Come back, check on it in a week, see how it looks, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, these pieces, you know, they really kind of screw you on these pieces too. These little pieces that you stick in there. I mean, I bought this for like $2. Probably, you know, it was made by a 9-year-old in Beijing for 15 cents, but whatever. You only need one of them, and then you get these little connectors. You just kind of press them together when you're hooking them up. And they make these connectors in different shapes, like an L shape, a T shape for all different junctions. I just keep it simple. So that's the blank, no holes, because we don't want to water this stuff. And we just kind of estimate how far. I guess I'll run it to the first plants. And yeah, that looks good. I'll cut it there, use a coupler to hook it up to the tubing with the holes in it, and then we'll go. Yeah, these weed fabric staples. It's a pain in the ass. It isn't going to do shit. It just holds it in for a second. And again, you want to make sure the emitters are kind of near the plant, but the goal is not just to spot water the plants. It's to make the whole massive soil beneath here inundated with, consistently moist. Right? Just so it's not like it's like we're just spot watering a bunch of potted plants. This whole thing will be moist. Last thing I'll say, so this is Salvia madrans. It's from Mexico. It's native 100 miles south, 200 miles south of where we are. Okay, got big broad leaves. It was in a 4-inch pot. Roots don't go very deep. Getting blazed in the sun here. This can take full sun in Texas with a little bit of drip irrigation. Once it's established, it doesn't need full sun. But because these leaves are so big, and they were able to get that big because it was grown in a humid greenhouse where the air wouldn't readily pull all that moisture out of those stomata, because those leaves are so big, they're going to wilt as soon as I put this in the ground, which it started doing. So that's why I went around and ripped the leaves off. Okay? You're plugging up the holes in the boat, if you want to think about it like that. Doesn't have the roots to support that much evapotranspiration from the leaves, from such a big leaf. So what do? You go ahead and you rip the leaves off like I did here, and look right down there. See, it's got new leaves already ready to go. That'll grow in as the roots grow in, and as the roots are able to support that root to shoot ratio. So that's something I always do. It starts wilting. If you're worried it's not going to make it, you can make it easier on the plant by just ripping the leaves off. And even when they're doing cuttings of these things sometimes, and cuttings of other plants, they either cut the leaves in half, like yay, or they'll just remove them all together. You can see there's still chlorophyll. It's still got a green stem. It can still photosynthesize, create its own, create more carbohydrates. It'll be fine. All right, so, especially if you're doing plant salvage, shit like that, plant rescue, it's all the development, the cancerous development in Texas. A lot of stuff needs salvaging. When you dig plants up, you're disturbing the roots, cut the shoots off. Like if I was digging this up and it was established, I would cut it right there and rip the leaves off and just let it re-sprout. Because if I was digging it up and digging it out, I'd be disturbing the roots. Anytime you're ripping something out of the ground, you're breaking root hairs every time. There's no way to not dig something and not damage the root hairs. That's why moving plants doesn't really work. Okay? It's a shit-for-brained idea. Sometimes it does with certain species, but it especially works if you make it easy. You plug the holes in the boat, plug the holes in the drain, stop it from losing moisture. Yeah, look at this soil. Look at that. That is pure weathered limestone. Calcium carbonate, aka limestone, or limestone is composed of calcium carbonate minerals. When it reacts with acidic rainwater, it creates that powdery, limey, calcareous stuff. And so many Texans aren't even aware of their own soil, or how specific and unique to their area their soil is. You're looking at the remnants of a Cretaceous ocean, a shallow Cretaceous ocean. How many Texan horticulturalists don't even know what edaphic endemism is, what limestone, more specifically what limestone endemism is. Plants like Cotinus abovatus, they're endemic to limestone, right? The American smoke tree, endemic to limestone, right? They'll grow in other soil, but in nature you're only going to see them on limestone escarpments. That specific soil chemistry, the mechanics of limestone, that porosity, how porous it is, how water moves through it, how water reacts with it and dissolves it. I mean, you take 100-year-old limestone gravestones and you can't even read the writing on it anymore because it's already been dissolved. It's already been relieved by just the rain. Look at it. Yeah, it's not even soil. It's just weathered limestone. God, these American smoke trees, I forget how nice the foliage smells. Holy shit. Look at this Siningia. It's got little tubers all over it. And the flowers smell fucking divine, like so many moth-pollinated flowers. Look at this. We just did this. Put that nice Siningia in the ground. That Gesneria. It's not native, but it's not invasive. Hibiscus martianus. And a handful of cacti and agaves, prickly pears, opuntia, and agaves from Mexico, and I ripped out all this goddamn weed fabric. This shit should be banned. There's no purpose in this stuff. Yeah, let's put plastic in the soil. Fucking morons. Why do you want to do that? Or what they'll do, what I see in Texas horticulture now, especially painful, is weed fabric with gravel. We'll put gravel over top because it looks so clean. It looks like a riverbed. Gravel and cobbles with a bunch of plastic in the ground, but then the soil's fucking dead. It's just horrible, horrible. It doesn't need to be like this. Learn the native plants around you. Use those. They're so low maintenance because they were literally built by your environment. Why are you putting fucking weed fabric? Get this shit out of here. There you go. That's nice. Look how beautiful that Nandina domestica looks now. Look at that. It's got to come through with the chainsaw. I'm not going to dig it out. I want to disturb the soil. I'm going to come through with the chainsaw, and then I'll probably spot apply some glyphosate, let it die a couple weeks, plant some leucophyllum protestin, some cenizo. Friends don't let friends have Nandina domestica. He only had it. This is Javier's. He only had it because it came with the house. No more, my friend. That's a garbage plant. Probably really important where it's native. 7,000 miles away. Here it's invasive and it's just Home Depot garbage. It symbolizes it's the same as a lawn. It symbolizes disconnection and control and delusional, it's bad shit, man. You don't want it. It's all bullshit. You don't want it.